Chapter 2, The Perfection of Yoga. Yoga as a work and devotion. We have heard the names of so many different yogas and yogis, but in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the actual yogi is he who has surrendered himself fully unto me. Krishna proclaims that there is no difference between renunciation, sannyas, and yoga. Yamam sannyasam itir prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava na hi asanyasata sankalpo yogi bhavita kaschana. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. In Bhagavad Gita, there are three basic types of yoga delineated: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. The system of yoga may be likened to a staircase. Someone may be on the first step, someone may be halfway up, or someone may be on the top step. When one is elevated to certain level, he is known as Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, etc. In all cases, the service to the Supreme Lord is the same. It is a difference in elevation only. Thus, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that he must understand that renunciation, sannyas, and yoga are the same. Because without being freed from desire and sense gratification, one can become neither a yogi nor a sannyasi. There are some yogis who perform yoga for a profit, but that is not real yoga. Everything must be engaged in the service of the Lord. Whatever we do as an ordinary worker, or as a sannyasi, or as a yogi, or as a philosopher, must be done in Krishna consciousness. When we are absorbed in the thoughts of serving Krishna, when we act in that consciousness, we can become real sannyasis and real yogis. For those who are taking the first step up the staircase of the yoga system, there is a work. One should not think that simply because he is beginning yoga, he should stop working. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna asks Arjuna to become a yogi, but he never tells him to cease from fighting. Quite the contrary, of course. One may ask how a person may be a yogi and at the same time a warrior. Our conception of yoga practice is that of sitting very straight and with legs crossed and eyes half closed, staring at the tip of our nose and concentrating in this way in a lonely place. So, how is that Krishna is asking Arjuna to become a yogi at the same time participate in a ghastly civil war? That is the mystery of Bhagavad Gita. One can remain in a fighting man and at the same time be a highest yogi, the highest sannyasi. How is this possible? In Krishna consciousness, one simply has to fight for Krishna, work for Krishna, eat for Krishna, sleep for Krishna, and dedicate all activities to Krishna. In this way, one becomes the highest yogi and the highest sannyasi. That is the secret. In the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna instructs Arjuna how to perform meditation yoga, but Arjuna rejects this as too difficult. How then is Arjuna considered to be a great yogi? Although Krishna saw that Arjuna was rejecting the meditation system, he proclaimed Arjuna to be the highest yogi. Because you are always thinking of me. Thinking of Krishna is the essence of all yoga system of the Hatha Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or any other system of yoga, sacrifice or charity. All the recommended activities for spiritual realization and in Krishna consciousness, in thinking always of Krishna. The actual perfection of human life lies in being always Krishna consciousness and always being aware of Krishna while performing all types of activities. In the preliminary stage, one is advised to always work for Krishna. One must be always searching out some duty or some engagement, for it is a bad policy to remain idle even for a second. When one actually becomes advanced through such engagement, then he may not work physically, but he is always engaged within by constantly thinking of Krishna. In the preliminary stage, however, one is always advised to engage one's senses in the service of Krishna. There are a variety of activities one can perform in serving Krishna. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is intended to help direct aspirant devotees in these activities. For those working in Krishna consciousness, there are simply not enough hours in the daily to serve Krishna. There is always activities, engagements, both day and night, which the student of Krishna consciousness performs joyfully. That is the stage of real happiness. constant engagement for Krishna and spreading Krishna consciousness around the world. In the material world, one may become very tired if he works all the time. But if one works for Krishna consciousness, he can chant Hare Krishna and engage in devotion service 24 hours a day and never get tired. But if we vibrate some mundane vibration, then we soon become exhausted. There is no question of becoming tired on the spiritual platform. The spiritual platform is absolute. In the material world, everyone is working for sense gratification. The profit of one's labor in the material world are used to gratify one's senses. But a real yogi does not desire such fruits. He has no desire other than Krishna, and Krishna is already there. The Perfection of Yoga, Chapter 3, Yoga as Meditation on Krishna. In India, there are sacred places where yogis go to meditate in solitude, as prescribed in Bhagavad Gita. Traditionally, yoga cannot be executed in a public place, but in so far as Kirtana Mantra Yoga or the yoga of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare is concerned, the more people present, the better. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing Kirtan in India some 500 years ago, he organized in each group 16 people to lead the chanting, and thousands of people chanted with them. This participation in Kirtana, in the public chanting of the names and glories of the God, is very possible and is actually easy in this age. But as far as the meditational process of yoga is concerned, that is very difficult. It is specifically stated in Bhagavad Gita that to perform meditational yoga, one should go to a secluded and holy place. In other words, it is necessary to leave home. In this age of overpopulation, it is not always possible to find a secluded place, but this is not necessary in Bhakti Yoga. In the Bhakti Yoga system, there are 9 different processes: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity in the temple, praying, carrying out the order, serving Krishna as a friend, and sacrificing for him. Out of these, Sarvanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, are considered the most important. At a public kirtan, one person can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, while a group listen, and at the end of the mantra, the group can respond. And in this way, there is a reciprocation of hearing and chanting that is very effective if the people do, and all the problems of their life will be solved. This is the very simple method in this age of Kali. This can easily be performed in one's home with a small group of friends or with many people in a large public place. One may attempt to practice meditation yoga in a large city or in a society, but one must understand that this is one's own concoction and it is not the method recommended in the Bhagavad Gita and other authoritative resources. The whole process of the yoga system is to purify oneself. And what is this purification? Purification ensues upon the realization of one's actual identity. Purification is realizing that I am pure spirit, I am not this matter. Due to material contact, we are identifying ourselves with matter and we are thinking, I am this body. But in order to perform real yoga, one must realize his constitutional position as being distinct from matter. The purpose of seeking out a secluded place and executing the meditation process is to come to this understanding. And it is not possible to come to this understanding if one execute the process improperly. In any case, this is the constitution Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalu nasti eva nasti eva nasti kavagate nanitha. In this age of quarrel and disagreement, there is no other way of spiritual realization but this chanting of the names. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. It is generally thought, at least in the Western world, that the yoga system involves meditation on the void, but the Vedic literature do not recommend meditation on any void. Rather, the Vedas maintain that yoga means meditation on Vishnu. This is also confirmed or mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. In many yoga society, we find the people sit cross-legged and very straight, then close their eyes to meditate, and so 50% of them go to sleep. Because when we close our eyes, we have no subject matter for contemplation. We simply go to sleep. Of course, this is not recommended by Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. One must sit very straight and the eyes be half only half closed, gazing at the tip of one's nose. If one does not follow the instruction, the result will be a sleep and nothing more. Sometimes, of course, meditation goes on when one is sleeping, but this is not the recommended process for execution of the yoga. Thus, to keep oneself awake, Krishna advised that one always keep the tip of the nose visible. In addition, one must always be undisturbed. If the mind is agitated or if there is a great deal of activity going on, one will not able to concentrate. In meditation yoga, one must also be devoid of fear. There is no question of fear when one enters spiritual life, and when one must also be brahmachari, completely free from sex life. Nor can there be any demand on one meditating in this way. When there are no demands and one executes this system properly, then he can control his mind. After one has met all the requirements for meditation, he must transfer his whole thought to Krishna or Vishnu. It is not that one is to transfer his thought to vacancy. Thus, Krishna says that one absorbed in the meditation yoga system is always thinking of me. That is the essence. The yogi obviously has to go through a great deal of difficulty to purify the Atma, means mind, body, and soul. But it is a fact that this can be done most effectively in this age of simply by chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Why is this? Because this transcendental sound vibration is non different from Krishna. When we chant his name with devotion, then Krishna is with us. And when Krishna is with us, then what is the possibility of remaining impure? Consequently, one absorbed in Krishna consciousness in chanting the names of Krishna and serving him always receive the benefit of the highest form of yoga. The advantage is that he does not have to take all the trouble of meditation process. That is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. In yoga, it is necessary to control all of the senses, and when all the senses are controlled, the mind must be engaged in thinking of Vishnu. One becomes peaceful after thus conquering the material life. Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatmah samhita. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. This material world has been likened to a great forest fire. As in the forest, fire may automatically take place. So, in this material world, although we may try to live peacefully, there is always a great conflagration. It is not possible to live in a peace anywhere in the material world. But for one who is transcendently situated either by the meditational yoga system or by empirical philosophical method or by bhakti yoga, peace is possible. All forms of yoga are meant for transcendental life, but the method of chanting is especially effective in this age. Kirtana may go on for hours, one may not be feel tired, but it is difficult to sit in lotus position perfectly still for more than a few minutes. Yet, regardless of this process, once the fire of material life is extinguished, one does not simply experience what is called impersonal void. Rather, as Krishna tells Arjuna, one enters into the supreme abode. युञ्जुन एवं सदात्मनं योगी नित्य मनसः शांतिं निर्वाण परमं मत्स्माथम अधिगच्छति. By meditating in this manner, always controlling the mind, body, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist attain to the kingdom of God through cessation of material existence. Krishna abode is not void; it is like an establishment. In an establishment, there is a variety of engagement. The successful yogi actually attain to the kingdom of God where there is a spiritual brightness. The yoga process are simply ways to elevate oneself to enter into that abode. Actually, we belong to that abode, but being forgetful, we are put in this material world. Just as a madman becomes crazy and is put into lunatic asylum. So we, losing sight of our spiritual identity, becomes crazy and are put into this material world. Thus, the material world is a sort of lunatic asylum. And we can easily notice that nothing is done very sanely here. We have experienced that. Our real business is to get out and enter into the kingdom of God. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives information of this kingdom and also gives instruction about his origin. and our position, what he is and what we are. All the information necessary is set forth in Bhagavad Gita, and the sane man will take advantage of this knowledge. Hare Krishna. Chapter 4, The Perfection of Yoga. Yoga as body and mind and control. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to fight, for he was a warrior and fighting was his duty. Although Krishna delineates the meditation yoga system in the 6th chapter, he does not stress it or encourage Arjuna to pursue it as his path. Krishna admits that this meditation process is very difficult. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asamasyam Mahabaho Mano Durnigram Chalam Abhyashena Tu Konteya Viragyena Cha Grayate. The blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Here Krishna emphasizes practice and renunciation as ways to control the mind. But what is that renunciation? Today it is hardly possible for us to renounce anything, for we are so habituated to such a variety of material sense pleasure. Despite leading a life of uncontrolled sense indulgence, we attend yoga class and expect to attain success. There are so many rules and regulations involved in the proper execution of yoga, and most of us can hardly give up a simple habit like smoking. In his discourse on the meditation yoga system, Krishna proclaims that yoga cannot be properly performed by one who eats too much or eats too little. One who starves himself cannot properly perform yoga, nor can the person who eats more than required. The eating process should be moderate, just enough to keep body and soul together. It should not be for the enjoyment of the tongue. When palatable dishes come before us, we are accustomed to take not just one of the preparation, but two, three, and four, and upwards. Our tongue is never satisfied. But it is not unusual in India to see a yogi take only a small spoonful of rice a day and nothing more. Nor can one execute the meditation yoga system if one sleeps too much or does not sleep sufficiently. Krishna does not say that there is such a thing as a dreamless sleep. As soon as we go to sleep, we will have a dream, although we may not remember it. In the Gita, Krishna cautions that one who dreams too much while sleeping cannot properly execute yoga. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily, nor can one infected by insomnia who cannot sleep at night successfully execute yoga, for the body must be kept fit. The Krishna outlines so many requirements for disciplining the body. All these requirements, however, can essentially be broken down into four basic rules: no illicit sexual connection, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. These are the four minimum regulations for the execution of any yoga system. And in this age, who can refrain from these activities? We have to test ourselves according to ascertain our success in yoga execution. योगी युजिंता सतातम आत्मनम रहसि स्थिता एकाकी यता चितात्मा निर्सेर अपिग्राहा. A transcendentalist should always try to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Self. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desire and feeling of possessiveness. From this verse, we can understand that it is the duty of the yogi to always remain alone. Meditation yoga cannot be performed in assembly, at least not according to Bhagavad Gita. In the meditation system, it is not possible to concentrate the mind upon the super soul except in a secluded place. In India, there are still many yogis who assemble at the Kumbh Mela. Generally, they are in seclusion, but on rare occasion, they come to attend special functions. In India, there are still thousands of yogis and sages. Every 12 years or so, they meet in a particular holy place, Allahabad, a sector. Just as in America, they have businessmen conventions. The yogi, in addition to living in a secluded place, should also be free from desire and should not think that he is the performing yoga to achieve some material powers. Nor should he accept gifts or favors from people. If he is properly executing this meditation yoga, he stays alone in the jungles, forests, or mountains and avoids society altogether. At all times, he must be convinced for whom he has become a yogi. He does not consider himself alone because at all times the Paramatma, the Super Soul, is with him. From this, we can see that in modern civilization, it is indeed very difficult to execute this meditational form of yoga properly. Contemporary civilization in this age of Kali has actually made it impossible for us to be alone, to be desireless, and to be possessionless. The method of executing meditation yoga is further explained in considerable detail by Krishna to Arjuna. Shri Krishna says, Sauchau desha pratisthapaya sthiram asanam atmana nati uchritam nati nicham chalyajena kushutram तत्रैकाग्रामं मनः कृत्वा यथा चितेन्द्रिय क्रिया उपावेश्यासने युज्नाद् यद् योगम आत्मा visuddhaya. To practice yoga, one should go to secluded place and should lay kusa grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The the yogi should sit on it very firmly and should practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses, purifying the heart and fixing the mind on the one point. Generally, yogis sit on tiger skin or a deer skin because reptiles will not crawl on such skins to disturb their meditation. It seems that in God's creation there is a use for everything. Every grass and herb has its use and serves some function, although we may not know what it is. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has made some provision whereby the yogi does not have to worry about snakes. Having acquired a good sitting place in a secluded environment, the yogi began to purify the Atma, body, and soul, included in Atma. The yogi should not think, now I will try to achieve some wonderful power. Sometimes yogi do attain certain siddhis or power, but these are not the purpose of yoga, and real yogis do not exhibit them. The real yogi thinks, I am now contaminated by this material atmosphere, so now I must purify myself. We can quickly see that controlling the mind and body is not such an easy thing, and we cannot control them as easily as we can go to the store and purchase something. But Krishna indicates that these rules can be easily followed when we are in Krishna consciousness. Of course, everyone is motivated by sex life, but sex life is not actually discouraged. We have this material body, as long as we have it, sex desire will be there. Similarly, as long as we have the body, we must eat to maintain it, and we must sleep in order to give it rest. We cannot expect to negate these activities, but the Vedic literature do give us guidelines for regulation in eating, sleeping, mating, etc. If we at all expect success in the yoga system, we cannot allow our unbridled senses to take us down to the path of sense objects. Therefore, guidelines are set up. Lord Sri Krishna is advising that the mind can be controlled through regulation. If we do not regulate our activities, our mind will be more and more agitated. It is not that activities are to be stopped, but regulated by the mind always in Krishna consciousness. Being always engaged in some activity connected with Krishna is actually samadhi. It is not that when one is in samadhi, he doesn't eat, work, sleep, or enjoy himself in any way. Rather, samadhi can be defined as executing regulated activities while absorbed in thought of Krishna. Asamayatamatano yoga दुष्प्रपा इति मे मथि वस्यात्मना तु यथा यथा शक्यो वपुतम उपयातः. Again I am repeating. असाम्यात्मना योगो दुष्प्राप इति मे मथि वस्यात्मना तु यथा यथा शक्यो वपुतम उपयते. For one whose mind is unbridled, Krishna further says self-realization is difficult work. Anyone knows that an unbridled horse is dangerous to ride. He can go in any direction at any speed, and his rider is likely to come to some harm. In so far as the mind is unbridled, Krishna agrees with Arjuna that the yoga system is very difficult work indeed. But Krishna adds, he whose mind is controlled and strives by right means is assured of success. That is my judgment. What is meant by strives and by right means? One has to try to follow the four basic regulatory principles as mentioned and execute his activities absorbed in Krishna consciousness. If one wants to engage in yoga at home, then he has to make certain that his other engagements are moderate. He cannot spend long hours of the day working hard to simply earn a livelihood. One should work very moderately, eat very moderately, gratify the senses very moderately, and keep his life as free from anxiety as possible. In this way, practice of yoga may be successful. What is the sign of which we can tell that one has attained perfection in yoga? Krishna indicates that one is situated in yoga when his consciousness is completely under his control. यदा विनियतं चितम् आत्मनि एवावस्थिते निष्प्राः सर्वा कामभयो yukta iti uchyate tada. When the yogi by practice of yoga disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desire, he is said to have attained yoga. One who has attained yoga is not dependent on the dictation of his mind, rather, the mind comes under his control, nor is the mind put out or extinguished, for it is the business of the yogi to think of Krishna or Vishnu always. The yogi cannot allow his mind to go out. This may sound very difficult, but it is possible in Krishna consciousness. When one is always engaged in Krishna consciousness in the service of Krishna, then how is it possible for the mind to wander away from Krishna? In the service of Krishna, the mind is automatically controlled. Nor should the yogi have any desire of material sense gratification. If one is in Krishna consciousness, he has no desire other than Krishna. It is not possible to become desireless. The desire for sense gratification must be overcome by the process of purification, but desire for Krishna should be cultivated. It is very essential. It is simply that we have to transfer the desire. There is no question of killing desire, for desire is the constant companion of the living entity. Krishna consciousness is the process by which one purifies his desire. Instead of desiring so many things for sense gratification, one simply desires things for the service of Krishna. Like, for example, we may desire palatable food, but instead of preparing foodstuff for ourselves, we can prepare them for Krishna and offer them to him with love and devotion. It is not that action is different, but there is a transfer of consciousness from thinking of acting from my senses to thinking of acting for Krishna senses. We may prepare nice milk products, vegetables, grains, fruits, and other vegetarian dishes for Krishna, then offer them to him, praying. This material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and difficult to control. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world. Therefore, Sri Krishna has given us this nice prasad, spiritual food, to conquer the tongue. So let us take this prasad to for full satisfaction and glorify their lordship, Sri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Nityanand Prabhu. In this way, our karma is sacrificed. For from the very beginning, we are thinking that the food is being offered to Krishna. We should have no personal desire for the food. Krishna is so merciful, however, he gives us the food to eat. In this way, our desire is fulfilled. When one has molded his life in such a way, devoting his desire to Krishna, then it is to be understood that he has attained perfection in yoga. Simply breathing deeply and doing some exercise is not a yoga as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned. A whole purification of consciousness is required. In the execution of yoga, it is very important that the mind is not agitated. Yatha deepo nevetastho nagete sopama smrita yogino yata chitasya yajunto yogam atmana. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remain always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. When a candle is in a windless place, its flame remains straight and does not waver. The mind, like the flame, is susceptible to so many material desires that with the slight agitation it will move. A little movement of the mind can change the whole consciousness. Therefore, in India, one seriously practice yoga traditionally remain brahmachari or celibate. There are two kinds of brahmachari. One is completely celibate and other is grastha brahmachari, that is to say he has a wife. He does not associate with any other woman and his relations with his own wife are strictly regulated. In this way, either by complete celibacy or restricted sex life, one's mind is kept from being agitated. Yet when one takes a vow to remain a complete celibate, his mind may still be agitated by sexual desire. Therefore, in India, those practice the traditional yoga under strict vows of celibacy are not allowed to sit alone, even with a mother, sister, or daughter. The mind is so fickle that the slightest suggestion can create havoc. The yogi should have his mind trained in such a way that as soon as his mind wanders from meditation on Vishnu, he drags it back again. This requires a great deal of practice. One must know, come to know that his real happiness in the experiencing the pleasure of his transcendental senses, not the material senses. Senses are not to be sacrificed and desire are not to be sacrificed, but they are both desire and sense satisfaction in the spiritual sphere. Real happiness in transcendental to material sensual experience. If one is not convinced of this, he will surely be agitated and will fall down. One should therefore know that the happiness he is trying to derive from material senses is not really happiness. Those who are actually yogis truly enjoy, but how they enjoy? Ramante yogino nante. Their enjoyment is unlimited. That unlimited enjoyment is real happiness. Such happiness is spiritual, not material. This is the real meaning of Rama, as in chant in Hare Rama. Rama means enjoyment through spiritual life. The spiritual life is all pleasure and Krishna is all pleasure. So we do not have to sacrifice pleasure, but we do have to enjoy it properly. A diseased man cannot enjoy life. His enjoyment of life is false enjoyment. But when he is cured and he is healthy, then he is able to enjoy. Similarly, as long as we are in this material conception of life, we are not actually enjoying ourselves, but are simply becoming more and more entangled in material nature. If a sick man is not supposed to eat, his eating unrestrictedly actually kills him. Similarly, the more we increase material enjoyment, the more we become entangled in this material world, and the more difficult it becomes to get free from the material entrapment. All of the system of yoga are meant to disentangle the conditioned soul from this entrapment, to transfer him from the false enjoyment of material thing to the actual enjoyment of Krishna consciousness. See, Krishna says, यत्रो परमाते चितं निरुद्धं योगसेवया यत्र चैवात्मनात्मनं पश्यानन् आत्मनि तुष्यति सुखं तयन्तिकं यद् तदा बुद्धिग्राह्यम् अतीन्द्रियं वेत्ति यत्र न चैवं स्थिताश्चलन्ति तत्त्वता यां लब्ध्वा च परं लभं मन्यते नाधिकं तथा यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचल्यते तं विद्यात् दुःखसंयोगा वियोगं योगसमुच्यतम्. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoy himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never depart from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from the material contact. One form of yoga may be difficult and other may be easy, but in all cases, one must purify his existence to the conception of Krishna consciousness, or we can say Krishna conscious enjoyment. Then one will be happy. यदा हि नन्देन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मेषु अनुसजते सर्वसङ्कल्पसन्न्यासी योगरुद्धास्तदुच्यते युधारद् आत्मवत्तमनम् अवसजितेत् आत्मैव हि आत्मनो बन्धुरात्मवैव निपुरात्मना. A person is said to have attained to yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. A man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. We have to raise ourselves to the spiritual standard by ourselves. In this sense, I am my own friend, I am my own enemy. The opportunity is ours. There is a very nice verse by Chanakya Pandit: no one is one's friend, no one is anyone's enemy. It is only by behavior that one can understand who is his friend and who is his enemy. No one is born our enemy, no one is born our friend. These roles are determined by mutual behavior as we have dealing with others in ordinary affairs. In the same way, the individual has dealing with himself. I may act as my own friend or as my own enemy. As a friend, I can understand my position as spirit soul, and seeing that somehow or other I have come into contact with material nature, try to get free from material entanglement by acting in such a way as to disentangle myself. In this case, I am my friend, but if even after getting this opportunity I do not take it, then I should be considered my own worst enemy. बंधुर आत्मता मनस्तस्या येन आत्मावात्मना जिता अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुवत्वे वर्तात्मवेवा शत्रुवत्. For he who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be greatest enemy. How is it possible for one to become his own friend? This is explained here. Atma means mind, body, and soul. And when we speak of Atma in so far as we are in the bodily conception, we refer to the body. However, when we transcend the bodily conception and rise to the mental platform, Atma refers to the mind. But when we are situated on the truly spiritual platform, then Atma refers to the soul. In actuality, we are pure spirit. In this way, according to one's spiritual development, the meaning of the word Atma differs. As far as the Nirukti with Vedic dictionary is concerned, Atma refers to body, mind, and soul. However, in this verse of Bhagavad Gita, Atma refers to mind. If, if through yoga the mind can be trained, then the mind is our friend. But if the mind is left untrained, then there is no possibility of leading a successful life. For one who has no idea of spiritual life, the mind is the enemy. If one thinks that he is simply the body, his mind will be not working for his benefit. It will be simply be acting to serve the gross body and to further condition the living entity and entrap him in a material nature. If, however, one understands one's position as spirit soul apart from the body, the mind can be a liberating factor. In itself, the mind has nothing to do, it is simply waiting to be trained, and it is best trained through association. Desire is the function of the mind, and one desire according to his association. So, if the mind is to act as a friend, there must be a good association. The best association is a sadhu, that is, Krishna consciousness person, or one who is striving for spiritual realization. There are those who are striving for temporary things, asat. Matter and the body are temporary. If one only engages himself for bodily pleasure, he is conditioned by temporary things. But if he is engaged in himself in self-realization, then he is engaged in something permanent, sat. Obviously, if one is intelligent, he will associate with those who are trying to elevate themselves onto the platform of self-realization through one of the various forms of yoga. The result will be that those who are sadhu or realized will be able to serve his attachment to material association. Sever. Okay, it is sever. Able to sever his attachment to material association. This is the great advantage of good association. For instance, Krishna speaks of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna just to cut off his attachment to this material affection, because Arjuna is attracted to things that are impeding the execution of his own duty. Krishna severs these things. To cut something, a sharp instrument is required, and to cut the mind from its attachment, sharp words are often required. The sadhu or teacher show no mercy in using sharp words to sever the student's mind from material attraction. By speaking the truth uncompromisingly, he is able to sever the bondage. For example, at the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks sharply to Arjuna by telling him that although he speaks like a learned man, but he is actually fool number one. If we actually want detachment from this material world, we should be prepared to accept such cutting words from the spiritual master. Compromise and flattery have no effect where the strong words are required. In Bhagavad Gita, the material conception of life is condemned in so many places. When who thinks that the country in which he is born is worshipable, or one who goes to holy places and yet ignores the sadhus there, is likened to the ass. As an enemy is always thinking of doing harm, so the untrained mind will drag once deeper and deeper into material entanglement. Conditioned souls struggle very hard with the mind and with other senses. Since the mind directs the other senses, it is of utmost importance to make the mind the friend. जितेत मनः प्रसन्नतस्य परमात्मा समिता शीतोष्ण सुख दुखेषु तथा मना पमान्योः. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he who has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. By training the mind, one actually attains tranquility, but the mind is always dragging us over non permanent things, just as an unbridled horse will pull a chariot on a perilous course. Perilous course. Although we are permanent and eternal, somehow or other we have become attracted to non permanent things. But the mind can be easily trained if it is very fixed on Krishna, just as a fort is safe when it is defended by a great general. If Krishna is placed in the fort of the mind, there will be no possibility of enemies entering. Material education, wealth, and power will not help one to control the mind. A great devotee prays, when will be I be able to think of you constantly? My mind is always dragging me about. As soon as I am able to fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, it becomes clear. When the mind is clear, it is possible to meditate on the super soul. The Paramatma or super soul is always seated within the heart along with the individual soul. The yoga system involves concentrating the mind and focusing on the Paramatma or the super soul seated within the heart. The previously quoted words from the Bhagavad Gita indicates that one who has conquered the mind and has overcome all the attachment to non-permanent things can be absorbed in the thought of Paramatma or Krishna. One so absorbed becomes free from all dualities and false designations. Hare Krishna.